farming is probably going to be impacted more by Brexit than any other sector because our relationship with the EU governs so much of what farmers do.
We had a discussion here that I hope the government is having, and certainly should be having more in public, which is looking at agri-food, agriculture. Not only, I think, what the implications of Brexit are, depending on the scenario, but also looking at it from the perspective of what is it the EU wants to do after Brexit, and what changes to whether it's agricultural support policy, how we regulate food, what kind of changes we also want to make after Brexit ourselves.
The spectre of no deal, say leaving at the end of March without a deal, falling over that cliff edge is taking up a lot of our thinking, a lot of our time and effort and resources, and has been for a couple of months now.
A lot of companies are actually in no deal already. We're only 4 weeks out. They've had to make substantial investments in the event of the UK falling out without a deal. A lot of the companies are doing contingency planning. We hope we can get a deal. We can move then into the discussions around the future trading relationship.
I've been around a lot of government to government negotiations in the past around trade agreements, and they usually happen right at the 11th hour or on a small extension. So politics is never rational. This is not a commercial negotiation. I'm not surprised it's taken to this long, but we're hoping there'll be some agreement for a deal.
Nothing is automatic. There's no slam dunk argument for what the future relationship should look like. And I think actually agri-food, food and drink are one of those sectors where you could be massively impacted by Brexit in a negative sense, but you could also, there are certain opportunities from diverging from EU regulations. The big trade-off is how much is the sort of revocation of access to the EU market going to ruin your ability to capitalise on opportunities going forward.
What's ultimately more important in the longer term is going to be the whole sustainability discussion. I think from farm to fork, that's the one which I think is concentrating minds of policymakers, of consumers and of interest groups, and I think the agri-food industry certainly needs to focus on that, not just now but over the medium and long term as well.
We talk about integrated supply chains here, complex supply chains, so all of this will actually have a big impact on the sector as a whole and of course on food consumers. So if we think about the WTO, under the WTO we estimated an increase in food prices for consumers, and in contrast, under the unilateral trade liberalisation, food prices will see a decline.
Actually, food is very cheap in the UK, and I think the politics of cheap food are going to drive quite a bit of the decision making as we go through Brexit.
The modern world, international trade, the modern economies are marked by a notion of give and take. And I think as long as we recognise that, as long as we recognise that Brexit will have opportunities, but that there has to be some kind of concessions as well, then we can actually make Brexit work.
No two stakeholders, no two businesses think alike. And I think the most important message is that radical reform is possible, but do it properly. That's the most important thing. Do it in a consultative way, and I think that you'll get more buy-in from those who are potentially going to be impacted, whether negatively or positively.